Have you ever received that dreaded letter? The one stamped "Denied." It hits like a punch to the gut, making you feel like the years of service, the injuries, the sacrifices, they simply didn't matter. It's a crushing feeling, and frankly, the VA system is designed to make you feel that way. They rely on complexity, on bureaucracy, on exhaustion. They hope you just give up. But what if I told you that hundreds of thousands of veterans are winning their denials, even the ones the VA swears are unwinnable? There is a secret playbook, a set of undeniable strategies that the VA absolutely does not want you to know about, because these strategies flip the script. They take the power out of the VA's hands and put it squarely back into yours. This isn't about gaming the system. This is about understanding the rules better than the people who wrote them. We're diving deep into the 8 most powerful secrets veterans are using right now to turn those denials into approvals, securing the compensation they earned and deserve. If you've been denied, if you're frustrated, if you feel like you've hit a wall, stop scrolling. This is the exact blueprint you need to win. The first and perhaps most critical secret weapon the VA hopes you never master is the power of the Pardo Independent Medical Nexus. Letter. Think of the Nexus letter as the missing link in the chain of evidence. The VA denial letter almost always comes back saying one thing: we cannot establish a direct service connection. This is the core issue. You might have the diagnosis, the current medical condition, and you definitely have the in-service event or injury, but the VA says there's no bridge connecting those 2 points. That bridge is the nexus. The VA's own compensation and pension, C&P, examiners are often overworked, underinformed about military life, or simply instructed to be skeptical. Their job, implicitly, is to protect the VA's budget. They might perform a 15-minute exam and then write a report that says it is less likely than not that the veteran's current condition is related to service. That single sentence is a death blow to your claim, and the VA will use it every single time to justify a denial. But here is the winning secret. You don't have to rely on the VA's doctor. You have the absolute right to seek an independent medical opinion from a private physician. This is where the Nexus letter shines. A strong Nexus letter doesn't just say, "I think this is connected." It must use specific, powerful legal language. It must state that the veteran's condition is at least as likely as not due to the service event. This is the legal threshold, 50-50 probability. If your private doctor uses this magic phrase, supported by medical literature, peer-reviewed studies, and a thorough review of your entire service and medical history, it carries immense weight. Why? Because it directly contradicts the negative C&P exam, creating a conflict of evidence. When a conflict exists, the VA is legally obligated to weigh all evidence equally, and often the independent, detailed Nexus letter from a doctor who actually spent time with you will override the rushed VA opinion. This is often the single biggest factor in winning claims for conditions like chronic pain, respiratory issues linked to burn pits, or complex mental health disorders where the VA tried to claim pre-existing conditions. Don't just get a letter that thoroughly rebuts the specific reasons for your denial, citing the exact medical literature that proves the connection. This level of detail transforms a weak claim into an undeniable legal argument, forcing the VA to reconsider. The second secret involves exploiting the VA's own failure to uphold its duty to assist. Many veterans assume the burden of proof rests entirely on them, but that's only partially true. The VA has a legal and ethical obligation, codified in law, to help you develop your claim. This is the duty to assist. When a veteran files a claim, the VA must make reasonable efforts to obtain relevant records, including service treatment records, medical records from VA facilities, and even private medical records if the veteran provides the necessary release forms. Where does the VA fail, and how do veterans win by pointing this out? They fail in 2 major areas: completeness and clarity. Sometimes the VA only requests records from one specific military hospital, missing years of treatment at other facilities or private providers. Sometimes they send a request to a provider who responds with "no records found," and the VA simply closes the book. A successful veteran, one who overturns a denial, doesn't accept the VA's incomplete search. They scrutinize the evidence the VA collected, and if they see gaps, if they know records exist that weren't included, they immediately file a supplemental claim, arguing that the VA failed its duty to assist by not diligently pursuing all available evidence. This isn't just about missing a document. It's a procedural error that can legally invalidate the entire denial decision. Imagine your denial was based on the lack of an in-service diagnosis, but you know your unit deployed with a field doctor who kept handwritten logs. If the VA didn't seek those specific logs, they failed their duty. You win by identifying the specific missing piece of evidence and compelling them to go back and look again, this time with a precise roadmap provided by you. This strategy forces the VA to do the heavy lifting they were supposed to do initially, often unearthing the very evidence needed to secure service connection. It's a powerful administrative checkmate. Moving on to the third critical strategy: controlling the C&P exam narrative. The compensation and pension exam is arguably the single most important moment in your claim process, yet most veterans treat it like a standard doctor's appointment. This is a massive mistake. The C&P exam is not treatment. It is an evidence-gathering exercise for the VA. The examiner is not your advocate. They are a contractor hired to assess your current condition and its relation to service, and their report carries enormous weight. The VA wins denials when veterans go into the C&P unprepared, vague, or overly stoic. Veterans are trained to be tough, to downplay pain, to suck it up. This mindset is deadly to a VA claim. The winning veteran understands that the C&P exam is a legal deposition disguised as a medical appointment. How do they win? Preparation is everything. Before the exam, they review the exact disability benefits questionnaire, DBQ, the examiner will use. They know precisely what symptoms, limitations, and functional impacts the VA is looking for. They don't just say, "My back hurts." They say, "My back pain prevents me from lifting more than 10 pounds, and I can only stand for 20 minutes before the pain becomes radiating," which aligns with the limitations described in the DBQ criteria for the 40% rating. Furthermore, they bring notes, detailed logs, and a precise timeline of their symptoms. They document flare-ups, the frequency of pain, and how the condition affects their daily life, work, and social activities. If the examiner asks, "How often do you have symptoms?" the prepared veteran doesn't hesitate. They answer with specifics: 3 to 5 times a week, requiring me to take prescription medication and lie down for several hours. The key is to overcome the natural tendency toward brevity and provide exhaustive detail about the severity of the condition on its worst days, because the VA must rate based on the average severity, including those worst days. If the examiner rushes you, if they seem dismissive, or if they fail to record crucial information, the winning veteran immediately documents the discrepancy. They write down the examiner's name, the time, and what was missed. They then submit a statement immediately afterward, clarifying the record. This proactive control ensures that the final C&P report accurately reflects the veteran's true disability level, preventing the VA from lowballing the rating or denying the claim outright based on a brief, incomplete examination. The fourth strategy, which is often dismissed as irrelevant by the VA, is the strategic use of choice, lay evidence, and buddy statements. The VA loves clinical records. They love diagnoses, but often the evidence of an injury or illness happening in service, especially for combat veterans or those in remote locations, simply doesn't exist in the formal records. This is where lay evidence becomes your secret weapon. Lay evidence is testimony from people who witnessed the event or who have observed the effects of the disability over time. The VA tries to downplay this, but under current law, competent and credible, lay evidence can be sufficient to establish a claim, even without specific medical documentation, if it's consistent with the circumstances of service. Veterans win denials by transforming vague testimonials into legally robust statements. A winning buddy statement doesn't just say, "Yeah, Bob hurt his knee." It provides context, detail, and timeline. It says, on or about October 15, 2005, during Operation Trident, Specialist Smith fell off the turret of the Humvee during a sudden stop. I personally saw him immediately clutching his right knee and requiring assistance to walk back to the staging area. He complained of pain for the remainder of the deployment. That level of detail makes the statement credible. It places the event in time and space and links it directly to the service. For conditions that manifest years later, like PTSD or Gulf War syndrome, lay evidence from spouses, family members, or former colleagues is vital. A winning spouse statement details the progression of symptoms. Before deployment, John was outgoing. After he returned in 2010, he started having night terrors and became hypervigilant. He stopped going to crowded places entirely by 2012. I have personally observed his extreme anxiety attacks 3 times a month for the last decade. This kind of longitudinal evidence paints a picture of chronic severity and progression that a single C&P exam often misses. The VA doesn't want you to know how powerful this personal testimony is, especially when official records are sparse. By meticulously gathering and structuring these statements, ensuring they are notarized and highly specific, veterans create an evidentiary foundation that is extremely difficult for the VA to ignore or dismiss. The fifth and perhaps most satisfying way veterans overturn denials is by leveraging the VA's own favorable findings rule. This is a procedural loophole that the VA actively tries to keep quiet. Every time the VA reviews your claim, whether they grant it or deny it, they must issue a decision that details the facts they found in your favor and the facts they found against you. These are the favorable findings. Often, even in a denial, the VA will concede 1 or 2 crucial elements. For example, they might deny the overall claim but state, the veteran has a current diagnosis of condition X, or the veteran experienced an in-service injury on date Y. They have legally conceded that fact. The winning strategy here is to meticulously read the denial letter, pull out every single favorable finding, and then use those findings as the foundation for your next claim or appeal. You don't have to reprove the elements the VA has already conceded. If the VA admits you have the diagnosis, you don't need to submit more evidence proving the diagnosis. You only need to focus on proving the nexus, the connection. If the VA admits the in-service event occurred, you only need to focus on the current diagnosis and the nexus. This streamlines the appeal process dramatically. Instead of fighting the entire claim from scratch, you focus your energy, your evidence, and your medical opinions on the 1 or 2 remaining elements that led to the denial. This is a crucial procedural advantage. The VA makes a finding, and they are generally bound by it unless they can prove a clear and unmistakable error in that finding. Denied veterans who win are masters of isolating the conceded points, thereby reducing the scope of the battle and significantly increasing the probability of success on appeal. This is the difference between a broad, confusing appeal and a laser-focused, targeted argument that the VA cannot easily refute. Secret number 6 is the CHACO strategic deployment of secondary service connection. Many veterans focus solely on direct service connection, the injury that happened directly in service. But the VA system is designed to rate disabilities based on their overall impact on your health. And often, one service-connected condition leads directly to another, non-service-connected condition. This is secondary service connection, and it is a massive area where veterans are winning denied claims. Think about it. A veteran gets service connection for a knee injury, primary condition. Years of favoring that knee and walking with an altered gait lead to chronic back pain, hip issues, or even plantar fasciitis, secondary conditions. The back pain was not incurred in service, but it was caused by the service-connected knee injury. Therefore, the back pain is secondarily service-connected. The VA rarely volunteers this information and often denies these claims if they are not specifically framed as secondary. The winning veteran identifies all comorbid conditions and obtains a specific medical opinion, another nexus letter, linking the secondary condition directly to the already service-connected primary condition. This requires a doctor who understands the mechanism of injury. For example, linking hypertension, high blood pressure, to PTSD or anxiety, primary service connection, is a common, successful secondary claim, as is linking sleep apnea to mental health disorders or linking gastrointestinal issues to chronic pain medication use. The VA denial often stems from looking only at the medical records for the secondary condition in isolation, seeing no in-service event, and denying it. The winning strategy is to force them to look at the entire picture, demonstrating the domino effect of the original injury. If you have a primary rating, you must scrutinize every other ailment you suffer from. Could your weight gain, depression, or chronic fatigue be a direct result of the pain, medication, or immobility caused by your service-connected injury? If the answer is yes, you have a powerful, often overlooked path to overturning denials and increasing your overall rating. The seventh secret involves mastering the appeals strategy, HLR versus supplemental. When you receive a denial, you have choices, and the VA certainly doesn't make it clear which path is best for your specific situation. Choosing the wrong appeal path can delay your claim by years. The two primary paths are the higher level review, HLR, and the supplemental claim. The winning veteran knows exactly when to use which. The higher level review, HLR, is used when you believe the VA made a mistake based only on the evidence that was already in the file. This is the perfect choice if you believe the VA misinterpreted a doctor's note, overlooked a key record, or misapplied the law, e.g., failed their duty to assist. Crucially, you cannot submit new evidence with an HLR. If you submit new evidence, the VA will automatically treat it as a supplemental claim, potentially delaying the process. The HLR is fast, targeted, and focuses on procedural or legal error. The supplemental claim, on the other hand, is the vehicle for submitting new and relevant evidence. This is the path you take when you receive a denial because the VA said you lacked a diagnosis, a nexus, or sufficient lay evidence. You go out, obtain the missing nexus letter, get that new diagnosis, or gather those detailed buddy statements, and then submit them via the supplemental claim. The winning strategy is this. If the denial is based on a procedural error or a clear misinterpretation of existing records, file the HLR and request an informal conference to discuss the error directly with the reviewer. If the denial is based on a lack of evidence, a missing piece, take the time to gather that crucial piece. The nexus letter is the most common example, and file a supplemental claim. Never rush a supplemental claim. The new evidence must be strong enough to overcome the previous denial. The VA hopes you blindly choose the wrong path or submit weak evidence. By understanding this distinction, veterans ensure their appeal is processed quickly and efficiently based on the specific weakness of the initial denial. Finally, the eighth secret weapon veterans use to win involves demanding diagnostic clarity and specificity. The VA often denies claims or gives low ratings based on vague or nonspecific diagnoses. For instance, a veteran might be diagnosed with generalized joint pain or anxiety. These broad terms are easy for the VA to dismiss or rate at the lowest possible level. The winning veteran demands specificity. They work with their private physicians to ensure their diagnosis is as precise as possible, linking it directly to the military's diagnostic codes. If you have joint pain, the winning strategy is to push for a diagnosis of specific arthritis, degenerative joint disease, or a specific ligament tear. If you have anxiety, push for a specific diagnosis like generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, or panic disorder, and ensure the medical report details the severity according to the DSM-5 criteria, which is what the VA uses. Why is this critical? The VA rates based on the Schedule for Rating Disabilities, VASRD. If your diagnosis is vague, the VA defaults to the lowest applicable rating code. If your diagnosis is highly specific and details functional impairment, such as limited range of motion measured in degrees or the frequency and severity of panic attacks, it forces the VA to apply the correct higher rating criteria. Furthermore, lack of diagnostic clarity is often cited in denial letters. By providing a clear, specific, and professionally supported diagnosis, the veteran removes one of the VA's primary justifications for denial. This often involves going back to the private doctor, explaining the need for VA-specific language, and ensuring the medical records are aligned with the legal requirements of the VASRD. The VA doesn't want you to know that the language used in your medical records is just as important as the condition itself. Specificity is power, and it's the final barrier to overcoming a persistent denial. These 8 strategies are not hypothetical. They are the exact methods used by successful veterans and advocates across the country. They all share one core principle: stop playing the VA's game by their rules and start playing by the rule book they tried to hide. The VA relies on your ignorance of these procedures, your exhaustion, and your willingness to accept that first denied letter. But you now know the playbook. You know the power of the specific nexus letter, the importance of controlling the C&P narrative, the legal leverage of the duty to assist, and the strategic use of secondary connections. You earned these benefits. You served your country. Now, it's time to serve yourself by taking this information, applying these proven strategies, and turning that denial into the victory you deserve. Don't let the VA win by default. Fight smart, fight informed, and claim what is rightfully yours.